Hello and welcome to this video. I'm going to be talking about fantasy books that I personally like better than Fourth Wing. Now, I have nothing against Fourth Wing. I didn't like it as much as everybody else did. And that's okay. That's fine. I still enjoyed it, but these books are better. If you're new here, hi, my name is Hannah. I like to make videos all about books. I read a lot of fantasy, so if you like fantasy books, please consider subscribing. At this time, I want to just mention that I was inspired to make this video by this book talk creator and this video of hers that I saw. Go check out her video if you have a chance. And yeah, let's get into it. I've kind of broken out popular elements of Fourth Wing, and I'm going to give you a book recommendation for each of those elements, okay? The first element I want to talk about of Fourth Wing is the world building. Something I love about fantasy is that it can transport you into a completely different world, and I love just feeling immersed in a whole world. To me, as I was reading Fourth Wing, it felt like nothing really existed beyond Basgiath, the war college, the military academy, whatever you want to call it. It felt like nothing really existed beyond that. And I want to know a little bit more what just your normal everyday people are doing in this country. What do they think of the war? And so there's just things like that I wish I would have gotten from Fourth Wing that I didn't get. But the book that I have to recommend here when it comes to world building, if you're familiar with fantasy, this won't be a surprise to you, but the book I'm recommending is Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings is just renowned for the world building and for the level of detail that was put into this world, into Middle-earth. J.R.R. Tolkien he was not a linguist, he was a philologist, which is different from a linguist in that they study the development of languages. They understand how languages develop, like the structure of language. And so that is what J.R.R. Tolkien was an expert in. He taught that at Oxford. He researched that, studied that, put so much of his life into the study of the development of languages. And because of that, he developed actual languages, full languages for the peoples of Middle-earth. And beyond just languages, he also developed histories and religions and like a creation myth and a creation story for Middle-earth. And he created all of this, and you can find some of these details and all of these histories in the Silmarillion, which is a companion novel piece, companion book to The Lord of the Rings. Just the world building, the depth that he went to create this world and make it feel whole and complete. Nothing competes with that. Nothing competes with that. An honorable mention that I also really enjoy, the Chronicles of Narnia series. I love Narnia as a world. Part of it is nostalgia. I read it as a kid, but this world I just am in love with. So that is my honorable mention for this category. Element number 2 is the romance. I think this is one of the stronger elements of Fourth Wing. I think it was done very well. I personally am just not a fan of the bad boy trope, falling in love with the bad boy. I do like enemies or rivals to lovers, so there was a little bit of that, but the whole elusive bad boy character, what isn't typically my favorite trope when it comes to romance. So a fantasy book in which I just love the romance. I ate it up, is Divine Rivals. Now again, like I said, I do like a enemies or rivals to lovers trope. I like that trope, and this one does it so well. This book is about Iris and Roman. They are two journalists, two writers, and there is a war going on, and so they become war correspondents, and they're competing for a spot as columnists. And so there's this kind of more of an academic, professional kind of rivalry going on here. They fall in love through writing letters to each other. The situation with the letters is kind of similar to that in You've Got Mail, the movie. They don't realize who they're writing to, but they fall in love with each other. And when they find out who they've been writing letters to all this time, it is just I loved it. Oh my gosh, the tension, because you see both of their perspectives. You bounce back and forth from Roman's perspective to Iris's, back to Roman's, back to Iris. And so you're really seeing just how much their words to one another affect each other. And then you see them interacting with each other, knowing that they're the ones writing letters to each other, but they don't know that. And just the tension that builds up is palpable. and I love it. That is my book. That is my recommendation for a fantasy that I personally think does the romance better than Fourth Wing. And an honorable mention in this category is The Night Circus. This is a recent favorite of mine. I recently read this, but immediately became a favorite. This is kind of less enemies to lovers and more like forbidden love. Like, you have these two characters that fall in love and they're supposed to be competing. They are apprentices to these renowned magicians, and there's a competition between the two magicians, and so they're supposed to be rivals. They are supposed to treat each other like competitors, but they just, in a very fairy tale way, they just instantly fall in love. And from that moment on, you just, like, the way these two characters are written about when they are together, like, you just feel it. You just feel just how strong their love is, and it is beautiful. So that's my honorable mention. Element number 3, the dragons. And again, I feel like this is another strong point when it comes to Fourth Wing. I feel like the dragons for me, were the strongest element of Fourth Wing. I loved that Violet has this connection with 2 different dragons, and they have very different personalities. And so seeing the way they interact with each other and how they each interact with Violet was just, I loved it. It was so sweet, and so, like, I just loved it. So that is one element that that is my favorite element of Fourth Wing. But if you're looking for more dragon fantasy, let me suggest Eragon. Yes, it centers around a dragon and a boy who's learning to be a dragon rider and what it means to be a dragon rider. So yes, it has that element, but also I feel like it is a great gateway drug into high or epic fantasy, because it is very much structured similarly to classic epic fantasies, where you have this character going on this long epic journey, finding themselves, learning their place in the world, and going on this journey to fight for something. And so, like, that's what this book is. And if you've never read any high fantasy, epic fantasies, this is a great place to start. It is a middle grade YA, so, like, it's a very good introduction into it. But just because it is a middle grade / YA, it's somewhere in there. Don't let that deter you if you're an adult. I read it for the first time this year and had a really great time reading it. So go check that out. It's a great book when it comes to dragons, and bond between Eragon and his dragon Saphira is very similar to how the bond between Violet and Taryn and Darna is written, and so it's it'll feel familiar. Element number 4 of Fourth Wing is the magic. You know, this is kind of similar to the world building. In a fantasy, I love not only the world building, but I love to understand the magic. I want to know what element the magic plays in the world. I guess you could say the magic is part of the world building. There are plenty of fantasy books that have a very detailed magic system. And here I want to recommend 2 books by Brandon Sanderson. The first one I'm going to recommend, my main recommendation, is the Mistborn trilogy. If you want to know exactly how everything works, how the magic is, what to expect with the magic, this is a great one. In this book, the magic system is almost a science. It's very clear how it works. Yes, there are experiments later on in the trilogy where they're testing the limits of it and they're finding new things, but for the most part, it is still very scientific in the way it's approached, and I think that's very cool. Got interrupted the other day, but I'm not letting that stop me. I'm back, and I am going to tell you some more about Mistborn. In the Mistborn trilogy, magic revolves all around metals, and some people are able to ingest these metals and then burn the metal within themselves, and it gives them this power, right? These people are called allomancers. Most allomancers can only use and gain power from one single metal, but there are 10 different metals that can be burned and give different powers. There is a small portion of allomancers who are called Mistborn, and they can actually use all 10 metals, therefore they have 10 different superpowers. I think the magic system is super cool, and like I said, it's very well thought out. It feels almost like a science, like you know how everything is going to respond, how everything responds to everything in this world. And so honorable mention for this category is yet another Brandon Sanderson book, and this is Tress of the Emerald Sea. This one, the magic is more in the environment because on this world the seas are made of spores, not water. Just imagine a sea of all of these like flowing dust particles, basically. However, when these dust particles touch water or encounter water in any way, they erupt into these different substances. For example, our main character Tress lives on an island in the Emerald Sea. So the sea that surrounds her is made up of these emerald spores, and so when they encounter water, they erupt into these giant vines. Imagine like Jack and the Beanstalk level vines just erupting from these little spores. And yeah, I think this one's just kind of unique, and because it takes place at sea, there's kind of like a piratey vibe to the book. It's just a lot of fun. Element number 5 of Fourth Wing that I want to talk about is just like the pacing of the book. I know a lot of people love the pacing. I know a lot of people love that like constant life and death. You can't calm down ever. You have to be on the edge of your seat. With this book, I know a lot of people really like that. I know a lot of people were on the edge of their seat the entire time they were reading this book because of that. For me, because you're reminded that every little situation is a life and death situation for Violet, because you're reminded, oh yeah, she's probably gonna die today every single day. Once I got halfway through the book, that kind of lost its significance. And so I was like, oh yeah, I was kind of like, yeah, they say she's gonna die, but yeah, right. She's already been through like 100 different life or death situations, life or death scenarios, and she hasn't died yet. So clearly these aren't really that dangerous. Yeah, it got old. Yeah, I feel like I just needed a little bit more variability. I needed some just like calm days, you know? I needed some she's just studying at the library kind of days, so that when it did come to a life and death moment, I actually felt like, oh shit, she might die, you know? I wanted to feel that concern, that worry. And so a book that I feel like does this better, in my opinion, is Six of Crows. I like Six of Crows because it kind of focuses and revolves around this heist that is happening. We have this gang of characters. There are 6 characters that need to pull off this heist. Like, there's a lot of stuff that happens before the heist, but the heist is the dangerous thing. So like, we're kind of focused on like the heist, right? And yet there's so much happening before where, you know, things happen, surprises happen. Like, there's an ambush at one point. Those kind of things were like, oh shoot, yeah, I forgot that that's a possibility. And there's even a character that almost dies, like actually legitimately almost dies before the heist even takes place. That I felt the worry, I felt the concern for this character, because there's so much at stake with this whole heist being pulled off, and this character is needed for the heist to work out, right? This character isn't just like healed immediately. You know, she's unconscious for several days at a time, and we don't know if she's gonna wake up, and then when she does, she can like barely walk and things like that. And so it's kind of, it feels more realistic, and it adds more tension, because is she gonna be ready by the time this crew needs to go and do their heist thing? With Six of Crows, like I said, there is a lot that's happening, but also there are slower moments. Like I said, there are moments where they're preparing for this heist. It's still tense, and there's a lot at risk, but because we have these kind of moments to kind of calm down, to recover, I just appreciate the more intense moments more. I just liked the pacing better. My honorable mention for this category is Legendborn. You have these big moments of like a lot of action, a lot of things happening, and then you have moments to like recover, where things kind of slow down, they calm down a little bit. Not so much that you completely lose interest, but enough that you're ready when more action comes. And so I like that. This, I feel like, does action a little bit better than both like Six of Crows and Fourth Wing. There are battle scenes, these characters are fighting monsters, there are sword fights, there are tournaments, nightly tournaments, and so there's a lot more like fighting and action in this than in Six of Crows. So if you like that, I think you might enjoy Legendborn a little bit more than Six of Crows, but yeah, that's Legendborn. And those are all of the books I personally think are better than Fourth Wing. What do you think? Have you read Fourth Wing? What do you like about it? What do you wish were better? What books do you think are better? Please, let's have a conversation in the comments down below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions as well. With all that said, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for listening to me ramble about books, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!